NASCAR is back in session. 2311's lawyer warns there will be havoc if the teams are forced to relinquish their charters mid-season. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, folks. This past off-season, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports were awarded a major legal victory in their fight against NASCAR that now is at risk of being completely overturned. We'll talk about that. Also, at the end of this video, there will be some actual racing discussion. Kansas Speedway this weekend put on some great racing last year. We'll do our standing spotlight and discuss some interesting head-to-head matchups worth watching out for. But let's start with the latest from the NASCAR versus the team's antitrust lawsuit. Disclaimer, I am not a legal expert, but I have followed this case extremely closely as I do cover NASCAR day in, day out all year long. I'll try to keep things simple. Go back to this offseason. A judge granted 2311 and Front Row Motorsports a preliminary injunction. That ruling allowed the two teams to compete as chartered Cup Series entries throughout the 2025 season. It also allowed them to complete their purchase of the remaining Stewart-Haas charters. In that ruling, Judge Kenneth Bell zeroed in on the release language NASCAR included in their newest charter agreement. The judge effectively decided that the "you can't sue us" clause in the charter agreement was an antitrust violation. Thus, he granted the teams their preliminary injunction. Obviously now, we are 11 races into the 2025 Cup Series season. 2311 and Front Row Motorsports have competed as chartered entries, 3 charters apiece. But today there was a hearing focused on NASCAR's appeal of the injunction result. It's important to note that this hearing was not about the broader antitrust case the teams have brought against NASCAR. The focus of this hearing was the preliminary injunction and the legality of the "you can't sue us" release clause found in the 2025 charter agreement. Again, short and sweet summary, NASCAR's attorney Chris Yates argued that such release language has never been found to be anti-competitive throughout legal history, while the race team's attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, argued that they would face irreparable harm if these charters were rescinded since their driver and sponsor contracts are tied to them having a charter. The 3 judges were primarily focused on the release clause, the "you can't sue us" clause, because supposedly the only official reason the injunction was granted in the first place was because that language was found to be anti-competitive. So that was the core debate they were focused on, and that's what they questioned the team's attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, on heavily. I listened to the full hearing. In fact, I'll link it down below if you'd like to check it out for yourself. Basically, the judges said that the teams needed to pick a lane. The teams could have signed the original charter agreement and then waived their rights to sue, or they could have not signed the charter agreement and then sued. Instead, the judges say that the teams are trying to have their cake and eat it too. The teams didn't sign the agreement, sued, and then wanted to be included in the agreement anyway. They wanted to keep their charters. So, the judges did not make a decision today. The results of this appeal will be known in the coming days or the next couple of weeks. But if you listen to the entire 45-minute hearing, it sounds like the judges are most likely to side with NASCAR. Again, I am not a legal expert. That is my non-expert opinion. All I can say is that the judges were questioning the teams and their representatives heavily. They admitted that, in their opinion, the teams actually might have a good antitrust case against NASCAR, but again, that's not what this hearing was about. This hearing was solely focused on the "you can't sue us" clause. Is it legal? Is it illegal? The first judge ruled it to be illegal, thus granting the teams their preliminary injunction, but these 3 judges today, my interpretation is that they did not view it the same way the first judge did. So again, my gut tells me, my non-expert opinion is that there is a real chance the teams will have their injunction request overturned. If that happens, I suppose the 6 charters currently used by 2311 and Front Row Motorsports would no longer be in use. I guess they would go back to Stewart-Haas Racing. They would go back to NASCAR. They would revert back to their previous owners. And 2311 and Front Row would be forced to compete the rest of the season as open teams, which means they'd be entitled to less purse money, smaller payouts, and if there are any upcoming races with more than 40 entries, they would have to race their way and qualify their way into the 40-car field. As far as driver or sponsor contracts, TBD. Court documents suggest Tyler Reddick's contract with the team is tied to the team having a charter. I doubt Reddick would walk away mid-season over this, but going into 2026, that would put real strain on this business. We've talked all along about what side is feeling the most pressure. It felt like throughout the negotiation process, most of the pressure was put on the teams. NASCAR had the most leverage, but then 2311 and Front Row filed this lawsuit and suddenly, whoa, okay, the pendulum's all over the place. Then they got their injunction granted, which at the time granted 2311 and Front Row stability for the rest of this year. Suddenly the pendulum seemed to shift this way. Maybe the teams had a bit more leverage. But if NASCAR successfully gets the injunction overturned, I think the pressure is back on the teams. The judges said multiple times in this hearing that they highly suggest both sides come together, begin the mediation process, attempt to reach some sort of settlement that everyone can agree on. Obviously, that is still possible at any time, but that pertains to the larger antitrust case. Again, these three judges today were only hearing the appeal on the preliminary injunction. If you listen to the full hearing yourself or read one of the many summaries that have been posted online, you may form your own conclusions. Again, no official decision was made today. It sounded to me like the judges were leaning towards overturning the initial injunction. If that happens, that would put some immediate pressure on 2311 and Front Row Motorsports. Jeffrey Kessler, again, representing 2311 Front Row, attempted to make the argument that overturning this injunction mid-season would cause havoc across the Cup Series landscape. He pointed out that this injunction is temporary, only goes through November, and then the trial is set for December, and that's when we'd find out who wins, who loses. Maybe the three judges will see the merits of that argument, or they will continue to focus in on the "you can't sue us" release clause, and that will determine likely who they side with, whether they uphold the injunction or choose to overturn it. Anyway, that's the best I can do at summarizing what went down in that courtroom in Richmond today. Again, if you've got 45 minutes with nothing better to do, you can listen to the full hearing for yourself. I'll put that link down in the description below. But I don't want to wrap up this week without talking a little more racing. Kansas Speedway is this weekend, ARCA Trucks and the Cup Series, one of the best tracks on the schedule. Both Kansas Cup races last year were phenomenal. The spring race with that iconic photo finish, almost 4 wide across the line. I'm really looking forward to this weekend, and I want to spotlight a few drivers, a few names that I have my eye on. Corey Heim is pulling double duty. The 22-year-old will make his first Cup Series start of the season. He'll drive the number 67 for 2311 Racing. Booty Barker will be the crew chief. This will be just Heim's 4th Cup start ever. He did run this race 1 year ago, but it was in a substitution role for Legacy Motor Club. He finished 22nd. Corey Heim is currently leading the Truck Series standings by 46 points. He has 3 wins in 8 starts, an impressive 5.8 average finish. He is the runaway Truck Series championship favorite, but we all know Corey Heim, Toyota prospect, has his eyes on the Cup Series one day. I know we just discussed 2311's maybe uncertain future, but for now, they have 3 charters. Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and rookie Riely Herbst run their 3 full-time Cup cars. A head-to-head matchup that I am very interested in watching on Sunday is Heim versus Herbst. I believe Corey Heim is the better prospect. Riely Herbst, though, has a bit more Cup Series experience at this point. That will be a very intriguing head-to-head matchup to watch on Sunday. Let's do a brief standings spotlight. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., look at that. 15th in Cup Series points 11 races into the season. He has a 17th place average finish. His numbers are similar to his 2023 season, minus the Daytona win, obviously, and that was a great year for Stenhouse. He was top 15 in the regular season points most of the year. Remember, JTG Doherty, now known as Hayek Motorsports, is a small single-car operation. They're coming off a strong 6th place run at Texas Motor Speedway. I talked about this a few weeks ago, but still, 11 races in, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has managed 0 DNFs on the year. That's shocking for Tricky Ricky, knowing how aggressive he can be. Let's just be honest, sometimes mistake prone. He can be a little hot under the collar. We saw this in the Chili Bowl this offseason. Shoot at Texas, despite running top 10, he was door slamming Michael McDowell during a caution period. 0 DNFs through the first 11 races is a trend that likely won't continue, but it is still a very strong start. Remember, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a 2-time Xfinity Series champion. When he has it all buttoned up, he's a veteran. He's pretty good. I would be shocked if Hayek Motorsports makes the playoffs this season without a win at a super speedway, most likely, but to be 15th in points 11 races in is extremely noteworthy, very impressive. I wanted to spotlight Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ahead of this weekend's race at Kansas Speedway. What is Ricky Stenhouse's ceiling? Let me know down in the comment section below. Is this a real playoff contending team? Could they nab a win outside of a super speedway? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. That is going to do it for this Friday edition of Out of the Groove. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR content, race reactions, and more every single day. Big thank you to my generous Patreon supporters as well. Looking forward to a great weekend of racing at Kansas Speedway. I will talk with you again Sunday night post-Cup race. Have a great weekend, folks.